I never thought a simple morning could end with a man's bones breaking under my hands, but he left me no choice when I found him attacking my pregnant wife. Before we begin, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Let's see how far this story reaches. Now, let me explain how we got here. My wife Maya and I moved to Cedar Creek for the quiet life. Wide streets, big yards, that kind of peace. We wanted that especially now with her 6 months along. Every day felt like preparing for a miracle. We were setting up the baby's rule, debating names, living in that beautiful bubble expected parents share. Then the HOA turned toxic. Cedar Creek never had real problems before. Most folks minded their own business, properties pretty much took care of themselves. Then Helen moved in, a woman who treated rule books like holy texts. Within weeks, she declared herself HOA chair and hired her own security enforcer, Mark Dawson. No certification, no real authority, just a nylon vest, a fake badge, and an ego that didn't fit his role. His first complaint was about our garden gnome being an eyesore. His second was about Maya's flower boxes obstructing the sidewalk. His third incident, well, Maya kept it from me at first. She mentioned Mark had trailed her home from the store, saying he needed to verify her commute for HOA logs. She dismissed it as him being odd. I couldn't. But the real trouble started last Tuesday when Maya phoned me while I was repairing the deck. Mark came by again, she whispered. He demanded to inspect inside for code violations. He said refusal meant fines. Just hearing his name spiked my anger. I told her to bolt the doors and phone me immediately if he returned. I had no clue what he was capable of. Then came the day everything shattered. It had drizzled earlier, so the backyard smelled of wet soil and grass. Maya was outside arranging new planters on the patio, her favorite gentle activity lately. I said I'd just be in the garage for 5 minutes to get supplies. 5 minutes! Sometimes that's all it takes for your entire reality to fracture. I was cleaning paint off my fingers when I heard a crash. Then another. Not loud, but solid. Wrong. Like something slamming into a surface, not falling. I walked out, half expecting to see a stray dog or a tipped-over planter. Instead, the second my feet touched the patio stones, I stopped dead. Mark was there, not standing, not speaking, not writing one of his worthless citations. He had Maya shoved against our patio wall, one hand squeezing her neck, his elbow pressed into her collarbone, her feet scrambling for traction, her hands scratching at his arm, her face flushed with terror. The terracotta planter leaves smashed on the concrete near them. She tried to yell, but only a choked gasp escaped. Mark growled. You don't ignore association directives, understand? You think pregnancy makes you exempt. That was the instant something inside me switched off. Icy, silent, absolute. And Mark Dawson was about to discover what actual repercussions felt like. I didn't yell, I didn't threaten, meant like Mark don't merit threats. But he must have sensed the atmosphere because he glanced over just enough to spot me standing at the edge of the patio. Back away, he snapped, squeezing Maya's throat tighter. This is HOA's protocol. She opposed inspection. Maya's face was deepening the purple, her breaths shallow and ragged, her hands shaking as she struggled to pry his grip loose. My chest constricted so violently I thought my lungs might collapse. I stepped closer steadily, hands open at my sides, voice calm but firm. Release my wife. He laughed bitterly. She hit me first. He didn't finish because I was already moving. Training isn't about spectacle. It's about accuracy. Chilled, effective, and definitive. The world went silent in my mind as I covered the space. Mark raised his other arm to strike me, but I intercepted his wrist in midair, my hold clamping down, and with my opposite hand I forced his fingers off Maya's throat.
She dropped to the ground, wheezing violently, fighting to draw oxygen back into her chest. Mark understood too late he'd lost dominance. What the? Let go! He shouted, trying to pull his limb from my grasp. I torqued it. The arm twisted beyond its normal limit. He shrieked. His legs gave out, but I maintained pressure. I moved behind him, locking the arm into a controlled hold. His shoulder socket moved under my touch. The action was clean, methodical. A single rotation applied properly can incapacitate a person for a long time. The snap resonated across the patio. He cried out, crumpling to the pavement like dead weight. You shattered my arm," he sobbed, cradling it with his functional hand rolling onto his side. I stayed quiet. I wasn't finished. He tried to get up, maybe to flee, maybe to grab the utility tool on his belt. I swept it aside and placed my weight on his torso. His air rushed out. I seized his collar, lifted him slightly, and drove a focused elbow into his side. Another pop. This $1. Mark convulsed, panting. "No, stop, I beg you." "You assaulted a pregnant woman," I stated softly. "My pregnant wife." He moaned, attempting to twist away, but I rolled him onto his front and restrained him effortlessly. His right arm dangled limp, his ribs moving incorrectly with each breath. Maya sat by the wall, one palm on her neck, tears streaming down her face, but her gaze was fierce and clear. She gave me a slight nod, wordlessly communicating she was alive, or at least aware. I kept pressure between his shoulders. "You're finished," I told him. He tried to mutter some defense, but only a hurt whimper emerged. I took out my cell and called 911. Composed, clear, every fact exact. Civilian report. One male posing as security, illegal entry, and attacking a pregnant female. Suspect is neutralized. Requires ambulance. Mark groaned at the word ambulance. Maya gradually rose, supporting herself on the patio rail. Her voice was rough as she stared down at him. "You chose the wrong home," she murmured. Sirens wailed softly in the distance, growing closer. And Mark Dawson, the fake HOA officer who believed he could intimidate anyone, lay defeated and broken on our patio, awaiting the justice he deserved. If you're gripped by this HOA story so far, hit like and follow, because what comes next is even more intense. The police came quickly, quicker than I imagined for our area. Red and blue lights painted the patio as 2 cars pulled into the drive. Mark whined when he heard them, curling around his damaged ribs like you wish they'd heal instantly. Officer Reed emerged first, hand near his weapon. "What's the situation?" he asked, looking from my wife's bruised neck to Mark's bent arm on the ground. "He assaulted my pregnant wife," I replied, tone even. I intervened. Reed crouched next to Mark, who attempted to speak, but produced a gargling sound. His forearm curved in an unnatural way. One glance gave the officer the full picture. "Medics are coming," he said, then spoke into his radio. "We have a serious assault on a pregnant victim. Suspect incapacitated." My wife stood behind me, wrapped in a blanket a neighbor provided, trembling but finally protected. Another officer, Garcia, located the phony badge first. Tinny metal, incorrect emblem, wrong lettering. Next was the tool Mark had dropped, still marked from where he'd struck her. Then Garcia picked up a notepad. "You need to look at this," he said gravely. I took it. At the top was a heading, Primary Compliance Subjects, and right at the list's peak was my wife's name. Beneath it, a scrawled comment seared into my mind. "Use force if she resists." Helen Shaw, the HOA head, the woman who'd spent weeks criticizing my wife's pregnancy parking permit, the woman who claimed our patio needed modification, the woman who told residents we were degrading the area's standards. My teeth clenched. "She directed him." Garcia nodded grimly. "Appears that way." The ambulance came. Paramedics verified the injuries I inflicted. Fractured arm, 2 cracked ribs, potential chest trauma, slight head injury. They loaded him in, his cries fading as the doors closed. Reed looked back at me with a blend of apprehension and curiosity. What's your background? I didn't respond, but Garcia noticed the tattoo on my forearm, the one I usually kept hidden. An eagle. His expression changed slightly. Thought I know that symbol. You Marines? I answered. Years back. He acknowledged with quiet esteem. The next day, arrest orders were issued for Helen Shaw. Officers removed her from the HOA office while she yelled about administrative power and community standards. She claimed it was a mix-up, but documents don't deceive.
Her private records revealed the reality. She'd permitted Mark to conduct physical enforcement actions. She'd funded him using HOA savings. She'd singled out residents she disliked, targeting my wife specifically. By afternoon, the charges were announced. Mark, HOA cope, felony assault on a pregnant woman, impersonating an officer, unlawful entry with harmful intent. Sentence: 10 years in state penitentiary. Helen Shaw, conspiracy to commit assault, authority misuse, evidence destruction, reckless endangerment. Sentence: 4 years imprisonment, plus $30,000 restitution, permanent ban from any association role. That night, Maya and I sat on the patio. Her bruises were healing. Her breathing was normal again. It's truly over, she whispered. I held her tight. It's over for them, I said. And that's how one fake HOA cop and the chairwoman who empowered him learned you never harm a pregnant woman, especially when her husband is a former Marine. But the story doesn't end with their sentencing. The real question is, how deep did this corruption go? Were other families targeted? The documents Garcia showed me suggested this was just the beginning. We discovered a whole file of unauthorized inspections and intimidation tactics. Helen had created a private fund to pay Mark, siphoning money from neighborhood fees. Several other residents came forward with similar stories once news broke. A retired couple pressured into expensive renovations. A single mother threatened with fines for trivial violations. This wasn't about community standards. It was about control. The district attorney expanded the investigation, uncovering a pattern of systematic harassment. And the most shocking revelation? Helen wasn't working alone. She had connections in local government who turned a blind eye. But that's a story for another video. If you want to see how we exposed the entire network and brought true justice to our community, make sure you're subscribed. If this story resonated with you, please support our channel by liking this video and subscribing to Trending Tales Pulse for more real stories that need to be heard.